This is a corporate training video following the Cotter's change model. This change model has 8 steps to utilize for the organization to implement change.
The first step of Cotter's change model is creating a sense of urgency. The managers and employees should both be on board for the change and growth within the organization. Without the support of management and employees, it'll be difficult to implement the changes.
In our case, Tom does not understand or feel the need to change within the organization. He likes the things the way were prior to the implementations of the change. He had no sense of urgency to be content with his position change. In order for him to feel a sense of urgency, Tom would need a clear reason why he needs to change in his position. Chris would need to give Tom's change in position meaning so he can get on board with the transition.
The next step in Cotter's change model is building a guiding coalition, which means putting together a competent team to help implement the change. It's important to bring together the right people that have the skills, qualifications, reputations, connections, and power to make the change happen. Once the team is together, focus on the goals of the change. Every group member should have a role. They should also be aware of the challenges and how they will work through to solve them. Communication during this process is crucial so that everyone can be on the same page and work together.
For Tom, he did not feel like this had happened as he was paired with Andy, who was an assistant to one of Tom's coworkers. Due to this, he did not feel as though he was being paired with someone who had similar skill sets. In order to have better improvement for Tom, Chris should have been communicating why they are being paired together and what he expects from each of them as individuals when being paired together.
The third step is to create a vision for change. During this step, create a big picture of what the organization is going to look like after the change is implemented. Make sure to align the vision with the central goal and vision of the organization. Allow ideas for management and employees to enhance the vision. This should be communicated effectively and efficiently. To help communicate the vision, use forecasts, data, market trends, or graphs to show the importance. It should be simple enough to be explained in about 5 minutes.
In our case, Tom did not see the vision for change. He had no idea what the organization would look like after the implementations of change. This made Tom very uneasy to the situation and made him resist the change. When Tom voiced his opinion, Chris encouraged everything he said. The vision was not communicated well at all. After the meeting, the employees were more confused than before the meeting. There were no graphics or data to show why the change would be more beneficial than what the organization was operating. What Chris should have done is to explain what the change would have done to improve and how it would benefit the employees of the organization.
The fourth step is to communicate the changes. This is when to communicate the changes to the entire organization. The goal is to get the employees to support and want the changes. The employees should feel like the change is not only in the best interest for the organization, but them as well. In order to do this, communicate as frequently as possible to keep them in the loop. Secondly, make sure upper management is demonstrating the ideal behavior that is expected from the rest of the employees. Encourage feedback from the employees and listen to their complaints, anger, and suggestions.
This step was clearly missed when pertaining to Tom. This is shown through Chris completely disregarding the complaints or even the fear that is actively coming from Tom. From the start, Tom begins to make comments about how he does not want to do it and doesn't feel comfortable. Chris should have listened to everything Tom was saying and try to find a better solution that will work for both of them.
The fifth step is to remove obstacles that occur during the change. This step is to iron out any of those obstacles that occur. Obstacles or barriers may be in the form of insufficient processes, resistant to change, or organizational policies. The team should focus on what obstacles are and how to correct them. Encourage employees to give feedback to fixing some of the barriers. Reward and recognize the employees that are actively working on implementing the change. Allow employees to get training and mentoring when needed during the change process.
There were so many obstacles when Chris implemented the change. Tom was so turned off that he resisted change and even started thinking of new career choices. Tom hated being on the fourth floor so much that when he expressed his feelings to Chris, Chris did not care, and Chris thought that it was the best fit for him. What Chris should have done was realize that Tom needed validation and recognition of his job. Chris should have put April down on the fourth floor and put Tom somewhere where he had a chance to feel motivated and happier with what he was doing for his job.
The sixth step is to generate short-term wins. When employees feel successful, they'll be more motivated to keep working. Therefore, creating short-term wins help employees have the momentum to keep implementing all the changes. Identify short-term wins. For example, employees successfully changing the processes. Acknowledge and reward those who have short-term wins to keep the positivity going and the employees more engaged.
In this case, Tom had not felt as though there were any wins, but more being completely thrown into things. It was more of a state of constant fear and had not felt appreciated in the slightest for his attempts. Chris should have rewarded the small wins, such as Tom going upstairs, since Tom had not been so visibly upset about changes in particular.
The seventh step is to sustain acceleration and continue forward with the change. While it is important to create short-term wins, it is important to not declare victory prematurely. After each win, identify what went well and what still needs improvement. Remove any unnecessary processes during this step and work towards building the change. The goal is to have the employees keep the change alive and work towards making it stick.
In the bubble, this is where the change failed miserably. Tom was ready to quit and to find a new job. He did not want to keep moving forward with this change. He would rather quit than continue to work on the fourth floor. Chris should have been more encouraging to Tom. While we know from the previous steps, at this point, Tom should have switched positions. If Tom was to switch, Chris could have celebrated his small wins and then worked towards the large goal of the organizational change.
The last step in Kotter's change model is to institute change. The goal is to have the change stick for the future. Discuss the importance of the new change by pointing out the benefits. Identify and incorporate terms and values that reinforce the change.
In our case, the changes did not stick. In order for this to happen, the first 8 steps should have been implemented. Because Chris did not follow any change model, all the employees reverted back to their original job descriptions. In conclusion, Chris failed miserably at implementing change. If these steps were followed, Tom could have been successful in the organizational change. The Kotter's change model is easy to follow, allowing for any organization to use and implement change.